Hi guys, welcome back to TV Spoilers. Today I'm going to review Claire's anonymous threat plan that terrified Audra. Will Claire's plan be exposed? Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that a threatening call to Audra herself. Claire is trying to overthrow Audra. Claire makes an anonymous call to Audra Charles, revealing that she knows one of Audra's secrets. This call isn't aimed at extracting information, but rather at sowing fear and making Audra make mistakes, putting her on the defensive. Audra seems terrified by the anonymous call. Claire chooses the most ruthless but effective method, instilling a sense of being hunted, causing Audra to reveal her own actions out of panic. And so the call begins, seemingly simple, but a push that sends everything off track. It comes at a moment when Audra thinks she's in control of the rhythm of the day. The landline phone rang abruptly. It sounded cold and harsh, unlike any typical mobile call. It felt like an old door being slammed shut, forcing the person inside to turn around and face it. Only a masked, empty, anonymous number appeared on the screen, and that anonymity made Audra's heart skip a beat. She hesitated. Audra wasn't the type to be intimidated by childish games, much less by anonymous calls. But precisely because of that, her hesitation revealed a dark side within her awakening. She picked up the phone with the habitual, carefully cultivated caution, her tone still sharp, still wanting to appear unmoved, but her hand gripping the receiver tightened more than necessary. Then the voice came through, not a real voice. It was distorted, processed through a layer of sound that made the words metallic and emotionless, as it come from a windowless room. That very sound transformed the call from a mere joke into a chilling pronouncement, a pre-announced verdict. The voice was straightforward, unquestioning, and unseeking. It went straight to Audra's weak point with a single, concise sentence that sent a chill down her spine. Claire knew. Claire knew about a dark secret Audra had long buried, a secret she'd always told herself was locked away, controlled, carefully concealed like a poisonous object forbidden from being exposed. The most terrifying thing wasn't the words themselves, but the way the voice spoke of it as an undeniable truth, as if the caller had witnessed it firsthand, stood right behind Audra in moments she thought only she remembered. Audra immediately raised her familiar shield, anger, firmness, and counterattack. She asked for the caller's identity, forcing her voice to remain calm, trying to turn the call into a confrontation she could win with power and authority. But the other persons didn't play by those rules. No demands for money, no forced agreement, no if, then, only a warning. Be careful and expect something terrible to come. It was precisely the lack of demands that left Audra with no leverage to retaliate. If the other person had demanded something, Audra could have bargained, bribed, or set a trap. But no, the caller only wanted Audra to lose sleep, only wanted Audra to witness every shadow in the room as a witness. And before Audra could steer the conversation in her favor, the line was cut off with a cold click, like an invisible slap. Audra sat still for a second, the receiver still pressed in her ear, though only static remained. The silence after the call was more terrifying than the threat, because it left a void for Audra's imagination to fill, and an imagination nourished by guilt is always the most cruel torturer. The panic didn't come in screaming, frantic way. It arrived in like a thin mist creeping into her lungs. Audra stood up, took a few steps, then stopped, as if suddenly unsure of her place in her own room. She began to sift through the past, not in a calm, nostalgic way, but like rummaging through storage room full of explosives. What secret? Who could know? Who had been nearby? She recalled every conversation, every time she interrupted someone, every time she confidently thought she'd cleaned up all the evidence. And the more she sifted, the more terrifying it became. A secret didn't need to be seen in its entirety. Sometimes just a few pieces, an overheard remark, an old email, an unintentionally revealed reaction were enough for a clever person to piece the picture together. While Audra was consumed by a whirlwind of self-questioning and self-defense elsewhere, Claire was in the complete opposite state. Not much action was needed, just a phone call. Claire didn't need to make demands because her goal wasn't material. Her goal was psychological. She wanted Audra to lose her composure, to start bringing her past self to the surface. Claire understood that someone like Audra could withstand an overt enemy, but would crumble before an invisible one. And just as Claire predicted, a single press of the button to end the call turned Audra into something racing against herself. Claire smiled in the shadows of that secret location, not a joyful smile, but the smile of someone who had just placed a winning piece. She didn't need to look at Audra to know what she was doing. She knew Audra would investigate, would call Tucker, would start suspecting everything, and in the process would create new rules. The clues Claire could track, could exploit, could turn into the next arrow. Claire wasn't creating new truths. She was creating pressure for old truths to leak out. And she felt victory didn't lie in Audra's fear, but in Audra's inability to realize how afraid she was until it was too late. And then, as Audra put down the phone after her call with Tucker, taking a deep breath to remain calm herself, trying to convince herself she was still in control, the landline phone lit up slightly as if it were a new notification. Not a call, just a small signal, a sign that someone had just touched the line. Audra froze, because in that moment, she realized the first call might just be the prelude, and the person playing this game had no intention of stopping. On our TV Spoilers channel, I always seek content inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting perspectives. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series.